Today I'm going to talk about the revenue feedback loop to hopefully come to better decisions using data. First of all, who's been here last year? I think you've been there. Anyone else? Good, then let's give you a quick recap. So last time I've talked about implementing the Bowtie, implementing the Bowtie metrics in HubSpot. Did you actually do that afterwards?
Of course. Yeah. First thing.
That's yeah, you did? Good. So, those Bowtie metrics, everybody knows this, of course. Under here you see VM, CR, and there should be a T as well. And I'm talking then about the volume metrics, conversion metrics, and the time metrics. And so volume metrics, they are then we're talking about simple metrics, KPIs. C-level loves those. So if you have a C-level dashboard, probably you only have volume metrics on there. Conversion metrics, they tell you something about the effectiveness of sales teams. For example, close rates or even lead to deal conversion rates. And time metrics. So how long does it take to go through the pipeline? And if you can combine them, then you have the most powerful ones. But to start with, let's talk about types of statistics. So we have descriptive metrics. So we're talking about what is happening. We got diagnostics, or why is it happening? Predictive metrics, which will help you forecasting. And prescriptive, so what should you do? And the last one is obviously the most difficult one, but hopefully we can come to that in a bit. So, to give you an example, average deal size, this quarter to last quarter. Are we talking about descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, or prescriptive? Anyone?
Diagnostic.
Diagnostic? Why?
You are diagnosing deal size and comparing?
I would say it's descriptive, because it only tells us what is happening. So we know that, okay, the deal size is less or more this quarter versus last year, but we don't have any context, so we don't know why it happened, right? So we need to add something to be able to know that. So another one, lead to deal conversion rate.
Diagnostic.
Yeah, why?
Because it tells you that there might be something wrong either in who you're targeting or how the product is presented. So it identifies problem.
It could signal something, but yet again, it's only descriptive because and we still don't have any context. So yet again, we only know that this is the conversion rate, and we might know over time that it goes up or down, but still we don't have any reasons behind it. And then this one, if we add the attribution source, so where does a lead come from? For example, is it a hand raiser, outbound, or whatever?
Diagnostic.
Diagnostic?
Because you have more context.
Right. Because now we might understand that if maybe a hand raiser lead probably has a higher conversion rate than outbound leads. So it's an obvious one, but still it's important to understand that. So if we add context, then suddenly we do get diagnostic data. And pipeline coverage ratio. This is the last one, by the way. Does anybody know what I'm talking about with pipeline coverage ratio?
Predictive.
Yeah. No? Okay, let's start with that one. So let's assume you have a target of 1 million. And you know that your close rate is 20%. And that means that you need a pipeline of 5 million to hit your target. But if your open pipeline is currently 3 million, then you only have a pipeline coverage of 60%, right? So that means that we need 2 million more into the pipeline, and that means that we need to talk to marketing probably and to turn up the gas. So this is, I heard you saying?
I said predictive.
Predictive?
Yeah.
Exactly. because it tells us that. Yay. So yeah, so it does tell us that we will not hit our targets with the current pipeline, and so we have to do something, but we still don't know what to do about it.
Exactly. So it could also be prescriptive, because it gives you, it predicts it, but it also prescribes you what kind of action you need to take. It doesn't show you what action, but you know you need to do something probably.
It tells you have to do something, but it doesn't tell you what you need to do. So with prescriptive, I really
what?
Yeah. Okay, Hans, who has a report with conversion rates on the dashboard?
Yeah.
Ooh, there are also people without. We should change your qualification criteria based on your conversion rate.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah? How did you do that?
It depends typically, like you're asking. Look, if your SQL to SEO is lower than the benchmark, for instance, then you're gonna dive into like, okay, what am I doing? How can I get it to the place where it should be? Is it maybe the MQL to SQL that's not good enough?
No.
So based on that, you're gonna check all the different criteria that you have, maybe add some or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And the others, I saw a lot of other hands, but nobody changed their qualification criteria, but maybe you could change something else based on your conversion rates? No? So, my question is, why are you looking at your conversion rates? How does it help you? Who raised their hands? You, tell me.
Yeah. How does conversion rate helps? Understand if the targeting is right, if the channel is right.
And do you act on it?
Well, yeah, you change channel or maybe test order format.
Good. So we're going to investigate how we can do that. First of all, so the most important questions are, if you'd ask me, first of all, do you have the data? If you don't have the data, then you're running blind, right? It's obvious. Then the next question is, do you act on it consistently? So ask yourself the question, do I actually only look at the dashboard, or do I actually use it to change the way we sell or we run business or whatever? And because if you're only looking at the dashboard, then, well, go to a museum to look at things, right? And then the most important question is, do you close that loop? So do you actually change your process and then look at your data again and do it again and do it again? Because if you do that, Vlad just told about the compounding effect. If you keep on using your data and keep on changing the way you're working, then you have a really powerful instrument. And to do that, we use the revenue feedback loop. And that looks like this. So we have 4 stages. First of all, measure. That means extracting the signals that you need to understand what actually happens in your business. The second one is using those signals to understand where you need to push and what you need to improve. Based on that, you're going to act. So you're going to implement the changes. And last but not least, you have to validate and verify your results to see if you made the right choice. So, step 1, measure. Well, everybody has seen that statement, garbage in is garbage out, right? So the most common reason that you don't have a proper feedback loop is simply because your data quality is too low. And it can mean it can be quantitative data, but also qualitative data, such as SPICE completeness. So if you are using SPICE or any other qualification framework, but you don't properly put it in, then we don't know, we don't have the data to act on that. I also see closing discipline. That's a very common course that I see. So AEs, they love to win deals, but they don't like to lose deals. So they keep their deals open on the pipeline for ages, which means that we don't know why we lose something. Well, then we have consistent processes, and we want to have clear deal stage entry criteria, and we want everybody to follow that in a consistent manner, so that we have, if you look at the data, that you also see that, for example, the days to close a deal, you shouldn't, the average is X, but we don't want to have a huge deviation, because that means that we don't have a consistent way of selling, basically. And activity logging, well, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so my first advice would be start with log all your stuff. Then we have those 3 base signals I've been talking about, right? Volume, conversion, and time. So volume, how much, how many, conversion, how effectively, and time tell you how fast something can be. For example, leads created for volume, conversion, lead to deal conversion ratio, days to connect or days to close as examples of time metrics. Hello. There we go. I don't have to stand too much, I think. And you see already that the volume metrics are by default descriptive, so they're also the least interesting here. So with all your reports on your dashboard, always try to ask yourself, is this a descriptive or a diagnostic or a predictive report? Because if you really want to get the most out of that, you probably want to look at the diagnostic and the predictive reports. Well, a report like that can look like this. So for all my clients, I always build reports like this, where I have the volume, the conversion, and the time metrics next to each other, so that I can really easily spot what is actually going on in the funnel. And what you see here is an example of the third Bowtie stage, but I also make these kind of reports for the pipeline, for example. And so for the deal pipeline from stage to stage. And I think it's really important to do that between the stages of a deal, for example, because after you have the sorry. So what you see after you have the deal probability in a certain stage, so you know that the first stage has a deal probability of 20%, second one of 40%, 60%, and so on and so on. But it doesn't tell you on the spot where you actually fall off. Because it can be that between that 20 and 40%, that maybe that conversion rate is 80%, while the conversion rate between the second and the third stage might be 20%. So that means that is the place where you have to look to improve your full business. Well, one big problem I often see is the rolling window measurement. So if you look at deal conversion, what you can do is look at the deals won divided by the deals created per month. But if you do that, then you don't have time to see what happens with the deals created this month. So actually, we're not looking at the right data, because if we get a lot of deals coming into the pipeline, then the conversion rates goes down. But actually, this situation might actually got better instead. So instead, you always want to look at a closed process, or you want to you want to measure it cohort-based. So, for example, for deal conversion, you want to look at deals won divided by all the deals closed this month, because that gives you a fair comparison, or leads converted to MQL within a fixed window. And so you can say, I can see that on average it takes 90 days for a lead to convert to an MQL, so then I'm going to look 90 days back, and of all the leads created 90 days back, how many of them have converted. Second step, signals. So, a signal is a data point that tells you something is worth investigating. You don't have an answer yet, but you know where to look. But a signal is not a metric, it's not a conclusion, and it's also definitely not noise. First of all, metric. So, if you have 200 leads created, that is a metric. It's just something, okay, we can see that. So that's basically a volume metric. But 12 leads connected, that is a signal. And so then we know, okay, there's something is going on, because I see that only 1.2% of my, even less. Well, not a lot of leads get connected. You do the math. And so that could mean that you have to investigate the top of the funnel, because apparently the lead quality is very low, what's going in. But it's also definitely not a conclusion. And so it's only should help you formulate the question you're going to pursue, right? So a low conversion rate should trigger you to investigate why those conversion rates are so low. And that would be the next step. And it's also definitely not noise. At least and if it's noise, then you should ignore it. For example, if you look at the conversion rates, they always go up and down. So you will never have a flat line if you look at your data, because you have seasonal changes, AEs to do different things, and so on and so on. So if you look at your conversion rate reports, you see that they fluctuate between 18 and 22%. That's just noise. So ignore that and go look for something else. But if they go from 22 to 20 to 18 to 16, then you have a steady decline. So then something is definitely going on. But also if it's going from 10 to 30 to 5 to 20, then there's also definitely something going on, but something else is wrong, right? Because you have to have some kind of a consistency, and then you should be sure that you have the right process, that you put people following those processes, etc. And so a signal either has a very clear pattern, or they have a lack of a clear pattern and are very inconsistent. So if you see either of those, then it's definitely a reason to jump into it. And then that means that you shouldn't, based on the data, not necessarily explain what's going on, but you should understand what data is worth explaining, and then you should hunt that question. So, a couple of examples. If you if you look at only the volume metric, so we created 200 leads last month. What we don't know is what leads are worth pursuit, right? Second one, if we add conversion rate, then we have a diagnostic metric. Then we can see that our close rate dropped from 22 to 16%. But we still don't know what is the problem. Is it the lead quality, is it the process, or is it the skill of my reps? If we add the breakdown, then we add context. Then we can see that the close rate, for example, dropped for outbound leads, but the inbound leads held steady, and that means that we do have a signal. We do understand where to look, and we do need to understand why the outbound leads converted so much less, and that would be the target of this feedback loop then. And then if you want to go even better, then you can add the time metrics to it, and then suddenly it becomes predictive, and then you can ask yourself the question, hey, but what happens if we don't add? So signals are basically diagnostic metrics with context, and if you have a prescriptive signal, then it will really help you to sell your feedback loop internally, because then it also gives you urgency. Okay, finding the gap. For example, we have a pipeline, lead pipeline, where we have in total a total conversion rate of 17%. But if you look at the critical stages, so from a new lead to a connected lead to a qualified lead, at scenario A, you see that the conversion rate is very low between the new lead and a connected lead, but very high between connected and qualified, right? So it's apparently it's really hard to get in touch, but as soon as you get in touch, you are able to qualify. Whereas with scenario B, it's actually the other way around. So for scenario A, apparently the leads are very good, the quality is very good, we can't reach them. So what could be a possible fix, speed to lead. So whenever a lead comes in, jump on it, try to connect to them straight away. Attempt thresholds. It could be that you're only trying to connect 2 times, send an email, send another email, and then, okay, fuck it, disqualify them. So maybe you have to try harder, so at least try 7 times. You can start using sequences or improve your sequences. And there are numerous other possibilities. Typically, they are very easy to fix, to be honest, if you can't connect to them. Scenario B, so then it's the other way around. So the lead quality is very low, although you can get connected to them. So most probably this is a quality issue. So to fix this, you can improve your ICP definition so that the inflow of leads is getting better, the quality of them. Maybe you have to improve your lead scoring. So maybe the lead scoring threshold is too low, or the different criteria are not good enough. Or simply you have to talk to marketing to make sure that you're fully aligned on what is a good quality lead.
That never happens.
Sorry?
I said that never happens, the last one, right?
Yeah, I know. No, but it is really, really important because marketing is giving you the lead. So if you don't fully align on what a good lead is, then marketing is, first of all, they're running blind as well. And then you just get a bag of garbage on your desk, but you do have to change them because those are the leads you get. Right? But it's also the other way around. It's also the job. It's not only your job to talk to marketing if you're in a sales team, but also the other way around, because marketing should want to know what a good quality lead is so that they can actually report back and, hey, we did a really, really good job because we are delivering all those good quality leads. Because giving a lead is easy, but giving a good quality lead, that really stands out.
So you would split it between inbound and outbound?
Yeah, so this is, of course, this is a very simplified diagram, but you always have to, I mean, inbound, outbound, but also with inbound there are different sources, right? You have the request a demo form versus a talk to sales form, you know, that can also make a difference. Okay, step 3, then how to act on it. Typically you have 3 levers to pull, right? So you have the top of the funnel. So what is the inflow of your leads, of your deals, or whatever. Then you have the process, or you can coach your people who are working with the process. And with the process, basically it means how does your sales process look like, how does your pipeline look like, what are your entry criteria, and so on and so on. And it's always, of course, it might seem like an obvious one, but you really have to choose what the right lever to pull, because if you're going to coach your reps what's actually a top of a funnel problem, then, well, your team will get pissed on you and you won't get any results. But at the other hand, maybe your process is perfectly right, but you can see that the people are not following the process. You can see that easily when, for example, the time in a certain deal stage differs quite a lot between different reps. And then if you start fixing the process, then you also put the wrong effort. So, just as an example, a couple of fixes that you can implement in different stages. This is just a random list of examples because I can't be complete here. I'm not gonna, you can read them yourself, but just an example. For example, top of the funnel, update your ICP definition. For the process, if you can see that your criteria, SPICE criteria is not followed up, you can just add required fields so that you force your reps to follow it. Or you can simply start coaching your reps. And then with coaching your reps, it's also really important to understand that it's a difference between qualitative coaching, for example, help them to do better sales calls, but also quantitative coaching in the sense that you sometimes you have to tell someone to handle less leads, because if you have too many leads that you have to handle, then the quality goes down because you don't have the time and effort. Then, don't assume that data speaks for itself, right? So I can tell you, hey, the conversion is low. Hey, I can tell you the conversion of outbound leads is low, but that in itself will not cause action. And it also does not tell you something about the root cause. And sometimes I can, simply based on the data, I can tell you what to do, what to improve, but more often we just need to, the people to, the team themselves to understand what is actually happening. And then they can come up with experiments and possible solutions, which makes it easier to implement them, because if the teams comes up with themselves, then they are accountable for what they're gonna do. And it also helps to call Rutger, because he is this is actually what he does, helping the teams to perform better. And then the last one, maybe also an obvious one, but validate your results. So don't simply run an experiment and do nothing, but always make sure that afterwards that you do know what the effects are of what you did. And when you are running an experiment, because basically that's what you're doing in the act phase, and make sure that you have a very clear question, that you have a testable hypothesis. Thank you very much. Yeah. And that you also define the variables you are looking at. For example, the question could be, will we be able to connect more leads if we try harder? And the hypothesis will be, well, more outreach attempts will increase the number of leads that convert. Well, if that's the case, then the variables could be, currently the average outreach attempts is 4, and we want to increase them to 7. Then you have to do that consistently and see what happens. So, to close the loop, first of all, define your experiment, agree on a timeline. So you don't just say, oh, okay, we're going to do it right now and see what happens, but you have to be very clear and agree with the team, we're going to do this for 30 days or 60 days or whatever, and we're going to do it consistently. Then you can analyze the results, then you're going to define a new experiment, and then you can go back to step 1. And yet again, this also will have a compounding effect. So I would also say that make small experiments, because small experiments are easy to implement, easy to follow up, but if you do it often enough, then they will actually get some results. So following this loop, then you can actually be predictive based on your own data, and you will get and this will translate to actions that will actually stick. So, to end with, to give you some takeaways for home, first of all, look at your measurement system. So think of yourself, do I have all the data that I need to get my signals? Then look at the actual signals. So are they actual signals or are they just noise? And then last but not least, start using small experiments. Just one small tiny experiments, and also one at a time, because if you're going to run 10 experiments at the same time, then that will also pollute the results and you won't get the data that you need, because you can't prove that one of those experiments actually worked. Or you have to do experiments that completely have a different place in the funnel. That is an option. So I would say just get started. And if you get started, then eventually you will get to the perfect system. Well, this is it already. Thank you. Questions? Yeah.
Is this always a collaboration between sales, marketing, and RevOps, or where is the lead?
Doesn't have to, because basically everybody can access reports and dashboards. But typically what you see is that RevOps, they come up with the signals, and then together with the teams, they'll come up with the experiments. Yeah. And those experiments, they can be in between the teams, and so it can be an experiment with a collaboration with marketing and sales together, but it can also be that just only sales is doing it in an isolated manner, for example. Yeah.
Do you also do these experiments on the right side of the data?
Yeah. Yeah, always. Yeah. Yeah, you can do that everywhere. For example, very easy example is what to do with people when a renewal is coming up, or you can think of numerous experiments. For example, start with the renewal process earlier or later, or approach it differently. Yeah. Yeah.
And what if your cycle times are long? Like, for example, you mentioned in an experiment, do it for example 30 days.
Yeah.
What if you have long cycles?
Well, first of all, try to run an experiment that you can do within a small amount of time. So if you have for example, you have a sales process of 9 months. Some of my clients even have a sales process of 1.5 years. That's fine, but in between they have all kinds of sub-stages. So first try to identify those sub-stages and try to identify what is the most critical one that you want to tackle. And maybe you have, within those sub-stages, you have to go to the sub-sub-station stages, and so on and so on. And then eventually you will come up with a experiment that you can actually run within a small amount of time. But 30 days, it's not like the holy grail. So if it takes like 2 months or 3 months, that's perfectly fine. But an experiment that takes 1 year, that's really hard to do, because then at the end of the year, so much has happened that it's very hard to actually get relevant results, and it's also very hard to get people engaged in the meantime. Yeah.
A practical question, please, about HubSpot.
Yeah.
Which properties is a requirement to see this kind of detailed reports and make predictions or diagnosis for contact?
It depends.
I mean, should it be properties like target or lead stage or life cycle stage or deals? What exactly? Because I'm just started to make reports.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of insights because it's like a mess.
Yeah, I can imagine. Happens a lot. I think half my work is actually HubSpot portals that are a mess. So, no, but it depends a little bit on what you're looking at. So, I would start out first of all is define your volume metrics, because if you have your volume metrics, then defining the conversion metrics are easy, right? Because it's just conversion from stage 1 to 2. So a typical HubSpot setup, but it's not for everybody the same. Volume metric 1 would be the lead lifecycle stage, then the lead object, deal object, connected leads or leads in a pre-discovery stage, then deals, closed one deals, closed one MRR, then the next one is the onboarding completed, so this is the committed MRR, this is the starting MRR, then the current MRR, and the lifetime value, customer lifetime value. So that is like the typical, those are the typical volume metrics. If you have those, then getting the conversion rates and the time metrics are, well, straightforward. Not definitely easy, but then you will understand what metrics you need. And especially at the left side, it is actually pretty easy because all those metrics, they're just in there, so you don't have to do anything. If you go to the right side, then it's a little bit tougher, because if you want to have the, for example, the current MRR, then you have to work with snapshot data, and that is quite tricky. So then you would really need someone probably to help you out to set it up. Yeah.
If I need to see how my leads go through the one stage to another stage, for example, from subscriber to the MQL and for the sales accepted lead, should I use metrics like when this lead date entered this stage, or?
First of all, I would try to avoid lifecycle stages as much as possible, because they are often they're quite arbitrary in how they're set up. But even if they are very set up very consistently, they are a open process. So if you have a lead lifecycle stage, they can convert to an MQL or not, but you never know when they are done converting, so to say. Whereas if you look at the lead object, for example, a lead, you have a new lead, and a lead will be qualified or disqualified. So you have a very clear point of where that process has actually stopped. So that's also very easy to measure the conversion and the time metrics. So the only lifecycle stage metrics I typically use is between volume 1 and 2. So that's the lead lifecycle stage to the MQL lifecycle stage. Well, and the metrics are simply the date entered in a certain cohort, per month, per quarter, whatever makes sense. And the conversion rate is based on the date creation of the first one. So when is the lead created, and then how many of those leads converted to an MQL over a period of 90 days, for example, or 180 days, whatever makes sense. And the time metrics is simply a date diff between date entered lead, date entered MQL.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, really exactly.
So when you talk about a lead, you're meaning the object lead, right? So in the sales workspace, the lead as an object.
This is a lead object.
Exactly.
And this is the lead lifecycle stage.
Exactly.
Yeah, because for very interesting reasons, HubSpot decided to give it the same name.
Yeah.
And what if you have multiple contacts, and then you go to one deal?
What do you mean?
So you're reaching out to multiple contacts.
Yeah.
And you have one lead.
Yeah.
Maybe multiple leads, maybe.
You mean when you're going to reach out to multiple contacts from the same company?
Yeah.
Well, a Okay, first of all, be really, really careful with that if you want to do that, because if you start singing around that, hey, he also approached you, then it could backfire to you. And so, because typically the only reason why you would want to do that is for an outbound motion, because for an inbound motion, someone comes in with a hand raiser, and if another one comes in, then probably you're going to say, hey, but I'm already talking to your colleague. Then you can join them together in one lead, so you can add multiple contacts to the same lead. So you will still have one lead although there are multiple persons. Yeah. More questions? No? Well, then I guess we're done. Thank you for listening.